Now we move on to our next instructor course 2, and the chief instructor will be Dr. P. Venkataratnam. Over to you, sir. Yes, doctor, you're audible.
Yeah. Oh. Need to. Shall I start?
Please start, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. So,
you can start, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a basically instruction course about angle closure glaucoma. Though there is a question always, why angle closure glaucoma need to be so much of emphasized in the recent times? There are few reasons coming into everybody's mind regarding the angle closure glaucoma. The one thing is the disease magnitude. Another aspect is disease distribution. Another aspect is the capability of this disease. Coming to the disease magnitude, among the people aged between 40 and 80 years in the demography, taking into the world, the 2013 study says that the magnitude of whole glaucomas is about 64.3 million. And this has risen to 76 million in 2020. And in 2040, it is expected to be more than 111 million. If you see vertically this, from 2013 to 2020, there is a 12 million increase. When you compare with the 2020 to 2040, there is a 36 million increase. That means linearly, the magnitude of the disease is increasing decade by decade. That into an alarming proportions in the future as per the studies. Coming to the disease distribution, this is an unequal distribution throughout the world. If you see the primary open angle prevalence, in Africa, it is the highest prevalence, it is about 4.20%, and prevalence of primary angle closure highest in Asia is 1.09. And 75% of this world primary angle closure glaucoma is present in East Asia, and we are also members of the East Asian countries. So this is the unequal distribution which is making alarming in the community that what it is going to become in the future, or it is posing epidemic proportions in the future, especially in the East Asian countries. And this is a study of presented in the American Academy of Ophthalmology as a meta-analysis, and it has been compiled by 50 epidemiological studies by a prominent authors like Pitley and Foster and Tinnang and all those. And it is very significantly, you see this distribution from 2020 to 2040 in Asia. About primary open angle glaucoma alone is increasing from 28 millions to 42 millions. Whereas in angle closure glaucoma, in 2020, it is around 18 million, going to 24 million in the 2040. If you see vertically, this is an horizontal proportion what we are seeing in the Asian magnitude of the disease. If you see vertically, in primary angle closure, except in Asia, it is 20, where there it is a 24 million, it is insignificantly distributed in Africa and Europe and North America and other continents. That means almost nearly 33 millions of people are afflicted with this angle closure glaucoma throughout the world. Among that, 24 million is, the prevalence is present only in the Asian countries. This is the alarming proportion to understand the angle closure glaucoma in the future. The capability of this disease is to cripple the individual with blindness and create economic loss of the country. That is the reason why primary angle closure is an aggressive disease. It's a symptomless disease. In 90% of afflicts, it is a symptom-free. The afflicts are relatively young and the presentation is usually late. So these are all the things which makes especially late presentation when the patient coming to our OPDs. Usually by the time the patient comes to a physician, there is a one eye blind. There are studies saying that 40 to 50% of the angular glaucoma patients by the time of their presentation are one eye blind. This makes the physician job is challenging to control this enigmatic disease because of its aggressiveness. And unlike, we think that, very frequently we think about only CD ratios. That means famously unfamous finding in the glaucoma. Primary angle closure glaucoma have a 6 to 7 tentacles in its disease process, starting from the lens damage in the form of glaucoma flecken and iris atrophy and schisis and endothelial cell loss and trabecular damage and ischemic optic atrophy, optic neuropathy and glaucomatous neuropathy. The glaucomatous neuropathy is the one finding, the one factor which makes the CD ratios remaining nowhere. The CD ratio is affected. The ischemic optic atrophy is the reason why there is a failure on the optic disc. So whenever we are examining a case of angle closure, don't see only in the perspective of intraocular pressure alone or only CD ratios. We have to think about the disease capability of making the ocular structures. We need to be careful about it. And these photographs are shared by Dr. GC long back. You can see here the iris atrophic patch, in one segment in an angle closure glaucoma, which you can see very famous sign here in the second picture. In the second picture, here, you see this is the whirling of the furrows in the pupillary margin. You see they need to be radially oriented. You see the bending of the furrows surrounding the pupil is the one sign which is considered the whirling of the crypts. Iris crypts is an early feature of a sphincter damage. You can see here glaucoma flecken in the form of a fishnet appearance in the pupillary area. And this photograph shows that the one quadrant of the pupillary sphincter has become atrophied. That's why on dilatation, it is looking like a sagging, the pupil looking like a pear shape. And these two photographs should not be confused because these are all, though they are iris atrophic patches, are contributed by the LIOs in PRPC. So these are all confuses the physician. Once they see the pupil is irregular and the pigmentation on the anterior lens capsule, there is no surprise to diagnose that these are all because of iridocyclitis and started dilating the pupil. We are seeing this kind of cases also in Apex hospitals. And this is a case after this is the initial pupil is normal, and once there is one attack, and it will be dilated and fixed. And you can see this is the glaucoma flecken, another type of glaucoma flecken, which is looking like a geographical map with a fixed border. And this is from my favorite textbook from the Robert Rich. which depicted that horizontal pupillary dilatation. Is famously, we all think about vertically oval pupil in angle closure attacks, but it is possible that it can be horizontally oval also. If you don't take care of the patient at this presentation or at this stage, it will further percolate into the next level of band-shaped keratopathy with lipoid deposits and vascularization and fibrosis. And still we ignore that, we don't take care of this angle closure glaucoma at this stage, and it will percolate into another level, which is totally fibrous cornea and with a superficial vascularization. Nothing wrong if a new ophthalmologist diagnoses this is an acid burn or a lime burn. So once you see this kind of a picture in one eye, don't hesitate. Please do gonioscope in the other eye to find out whether the angles are open or not in that eye. And with this, I conclude this introduction of this session, and I invite Divya to talk about epidemiology of angle closure, and followed by the Suparna and Dr. Pratima to complete the management of the angle closure glaucoma. Thank you.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Please start.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Divya Gugila. I'll be speaking a few points on highlights of epidemiology and pathophysiology of primary angle closure disease. Glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness worldwide and is associated with decreased quality of life. The World Health Organization has estimated that around 4.5 million people are blind due to glaucoma. The prevalence of primary open-angle glaucoma is about 3 times than that of primary angle closure glaucoma worldwide. Based on some prevalence studies, it was estimated that by the year 2020, there will be around 76 million people affected with glaucoma. And this number is expected to increase to around 111 millions by the end of 2040, which will be of a greater burden to the society. Glaucoma is the second leading cause of blindness in adults in India. At least 12 million people are affected and around 1.2 million people blind from the disease. In India, the proportion of primary open-angle glaucoma and primary closed-angle disease is almost equal. While 90% of people are undiagnosed in the community, on the other hand, 50% of people diagnosed to be glaucoma are either being over-treated or being treated unnecessarily. The proportion of people bilaterally blind due to primary open-angle glaucoma is estimated to be around 11%, while that with primary angle closure glaucoma is around 16%, which means visual morbidity due to primary angle closure glaucoma is significantly higher than that of primary open-angle glaucoma. This is our hospital, glaucoma department at Sarojini Devi Eye Hospital. Out of 774 patients seen in our glaucoma OPD in the month of December 2020, 79 people were diagnosed with primary open-angle glaucoma, while 229 patients were diagnosed as primary angle closure disease. That means around 3 times more than that of primary open-angle glaucoma. The mechanisms causing angle closure are relative pupillary block, plateau iris configuration, aqueous misdirection, and lens mechanism. Aqueous misdirection and lens mechanism are relatively rare contributors to the angle closure, while relative pupillary block is the major mechanism causing angle closure, and is the only mechanism wherein we can treat with laser peripheral iridol. In relative pupillary block, there is an increased resistance to aqueous flow from posterior to anterior chamber. This resistance is maximum when the pupil is mid-dilated, wherein there is maximum contact between the lens and the iris. The increased resistance causes the peripheral iris to move forward, covering the trabecular meshwork, which leads to oppositional angle closure. When the contact is repeated and is prolonged, it leads to formation of permanent peripheral anterior synechiae, impeding the drainage of aqueous. Finally, I would like to conclude with the following take-home message. More than 90% of people are unaware of the existence of glaucoma. So a better awareness programs can decrease the visual morbidity due to glaucoma. Primary angle closure glaucoma carries a heavier burden of visual morbidity than primary open angle glaucoma. In India, it is difficult to do a community screening as glaucoma screening causes a major burden, economic burden. Therefore, opportunistic screening of all the patients visiting an ophthalmologist has to be done for glaucoma. While my next speaker gets ready, I just want to raise a question. Why do some eyes with angle closure develop an acute disease while others develop a chronic disease? Keep thinking. Thank you.
Good, good presentation, Divya. And you have challenged with a question also about why it is an acute and why it is some chronic. There are studies about it, but till now we could not able to conclude in whom it is going to be acute and in whom it is going to be chronic. But this is an enigmatic and aggressive, unequally distributed disease, which has a major impact on the economy of the society. That's the reason why we need to make it a point that every clinician, whoever come across the patients, need to do a gonioscopy on every patient to find it out early. By that, we can prevent the burden related to angle closure glaucoma blindness in the community. So we have to inculcate this gonioscopic examination in all levels of post-graduation. Then only we can control or we can contain this disease in the future. Thank you. Any thoughts? Divya, you want to tell something? We have time.
Like you said, sir, gonioscopy and intraocular pressure management should be known to every ophthalmologist, all the general ophthalmologists as well, not only glaucoma specialists. So emphasizing and teaching gonioscopy technique and intraocular pressure management at the PG level is very important, I suppose.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Shall we move on to next speaker?
Doctor, as we are lagging behind the time, we can keep the discussion at the end of the session, Doctor.
Okay, fine. Suparna, you are welcome. Suparna is an assistant professor in Sarojini Devi Eye Hospital, and she is a very good clinician. Please.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. I'm ready.
Please continue.
Yeah. Shall I start sharing my screen?
Yeah.
So let's. A very good morning to all, and we would go ahead with the clinical profile now. This is the last which Divya left us with point to ponder. Now I'll be talking about clinical profile of angle closure glaucoma, which is very misleading. So let's see why it is misleading. This is no discussion can be over without talking about the gonioscopy, as they were already emphasized. So it's a jewel of an ophthalmologist that every ophthalmologist should carry with pride in the top pocket. Those are my chief instructor's words, by the way. So aims of my presentation are, I will be talking about overall clinical profile, clinical classifications, usual and unusual presentations, and take-home message. So now primary angle closure glaucoma risk factors. I don't want to go too much into detail, but see the patient. This is a typical patient who will present to you. Indian population. Race would be a Southeast Asian or Indian population you can take. Age would be above 40. Gender, as she is a female. Short stature, very common presentation. So whenever you see such a patient, your thought process should start working. Keeping in mind the ocular risk factors, you have ocular biometrics. See the anterior chamber depth, which I have shown in slit lamp, the sunken eyeball or the sunken socket. Keep in mind the refractive status of the patient. Usually these patients will be hypermetropes, but not a rule. You can have angle closure disease even in myope. So keep that in mind. So now anatomical predisposition, all books give this. You will have a convex iris configuration, a shallow anterior chamber, and then you have to do a Van Herrick's test. You will see that it's very shallow anterior chamber, which is depicted in the last picture. Now, why we need classifications for angle closure? Structure-based classification, particularly, which is the one we follow now. So why it is needed? Because over years, we have come to understand that angle closure is an asymptomatic disease, not a very symptomatic disease as classically described in textbooks. And keeping in mind the epidemiology, we need a structure-based classification. And this can be done only if we are well-versed with gonioscopy. So this is the structure-based classification. It is accepted all over from the year 2006. It was given by P.J. Foster. It is also known as Foster classification. Here you have three categories: primary angle closure suspect, primary angle closure, and primary angle closure glaucoma. This is decided on the basis of structure which we see in our gonioscopy. So that is very important. Next is a symptom-based classification. It's of historical importance. People should know about this also. In this 5 stages are there. You have prodromal stage, you have intermittent stage, you have acute angle closure, chronic angle closure, and absolute eye. So now presentation, which is the usual one. See the patient profile. This is the patient when she presented first to us. See, eye is quiet, patient is comfortable, right eye is already blind, left eye she is presenting with a chronic angle closure, which is asymptomatic. So she presented to us only with the complaints of diminished vision. So keep this patient profile in mind for an angle closure disease. Now this is another overall patient profile. See the patient height, see her eyes, how sunken they are. Again, 40 years, above 40 years old female patient. Keep the gender in mind. So now usually what signs you see in the eye, which is presenting with angle closure, you will see that it's a shallow anterior chamber. You can see pigment dispersion on corneal endothelium. Then come to the iris signs, as Dr. Venkatrathnam has also described to you. You can see atrophic patch, which is seen in the left side picture. You can see iris swirling. You can see it here, the iris swirling pattern, which sir has already shown you. So you should be very observant in detecting these subtle signs. Otherwise, you are going to miss angle closure. Now, this is the typical gonioscopy picture. See how peripheral anterior synechia appear in the left side, and see in the right side picture, it's showing a synechial closure. Now, lens signs, clear-cut glaucoma flecken you are seeing. So these are subtle signs which you should take care of, keeping in mind the eye signs. Now, this is the less usual presentation, which is an acute presentation classically described in textbook, with patient presenting with angry eye, red eye, circumcorneal congestion, corneal edema, vertically oval dilated pupil, patient having headache, nausea, vomiting. This is what is classically described. Until now, many people have that thinking that the patient usually of acute angle closure will present with that signs. But that's what I'm trying to tell you, that that is a less common presentation we see in angle closure, particularly in Indian subcontinent. So now this is another picture of an acute attack, which is classically described in books. This is less usual presentation. In only 8 to 10% cases, you will see this kind of presentation. Mostly it would be a quiet eye, asymptomatic eye, which is going to present to you. So this is again vertically oval, circumcorneal congestion, corneal epithelial edema, less common. Now, so it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma not only for the patient, it's a dilemma for an ophthalmologist. If the ophthalmologist is well versed with gonioscopy, well versed in knowing that angle closure is also an asymptomatic disease in the Indian subcontinent, if he is aware of all the subtle signs of angle closure by which he should be able to find out angle closure, then it won't be a dilemma. But for now, in general public, in general ophthalmologists, it's always angle closure is a dilemma. So it's a dilemma for the patient. It's a dilemma for the ophthalmologist. So what happens finally? The patient ends with using all these medicines. So this is, I have not taken from any book. This is, we have seen patients in OP. This is just one. We have seen so many patients who will be landing up with so many medications which are actually contraindicated. You can see there's a cycloplegic also there, because this particular patient was diagnosed as iridocyclitis and was started on all this treatment. Somebody has diagnosed as keratoconjunctivitis, iridocyclitis. So patient was using cycloplegic in the eye. So this is the dilemma which we need to clear, which we need to make the people aware so that we don't miss angle closures. So just a small take-home message. I just want everyone to understand that they should understand the asymptomatic nature of primary angle closure glaucoma. They should understand the importance of gonioscopy as an indispensable diagnostic tool. I would say indispensable. Every ophthalmologist should learn gonioscopy. And gonioscopy is a skill which every ophthalmologist should master, and carry your gonio lens with a pride. I would say in your top pocket again, because that is very important for me. The gonioscopy is one thing which can help you in finding out the angle closure burden in the society. Otherwise, there is nothing else, because the patient is not going to present you with symptoms. The patient is going to present you with diminished vision only as a complaint and totally quiet eye. So it is you who have to see, do a thorough examination, going through your protocol of checking intraocular pressure, of doing a proper gonioscopy, then coming to your disc examination. All that you should go in protocol, then only you can bring out the burden, because we know angle closure has much more morbidity than open angle glaucomas. Some studies say that morbidity because of angle closure is almost 10 times that of primary open angle glaucoma. And we know disease burden in our community is mainly of angle closure glaucoma. So that has to come out, means everyone has to do a gonioscopy and do a complete examination. So this picture is a small effort from our side every year, which we do from Sarojini Devi Eye Hospital in March by organizing a glaucoma awareness walk. So this is a picture of last year. We do it every year. So these are my references.
मैम देखिए ये वाली बेल आपको ऐसे ही आएगा मैम, ये वाला वॉल्यूम जो है ना ऐसे ही आएगा, क्योंकि ये हेडफोन के थ्रू.
Suparna, you have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I would thank my chief instructor, Dr. Venkatatnam sir, who has always been helpful in giving the opportunity and always encouraging us to do things. I'm very thankful, and I'm thankful to the Telangana Ophthalmic Society organizers.
सुनाई देगा वो ना, ये किसके थ्रू जा रहा है मैम?
There's some disturbance coming in between. Somebody has kept their speaker on. So please, I would like to thank the Telangana Ophthalmic Society people for giving the opportunity and giving this platform to talk about the highlights of primary angle closure disease. And we are very thankful that our hospital got a chance this time to talk about it. And in future also, we hope that we'll get a chance to present our instruction courses or in some way be associated with Telangana Ophthalmic Society. Thank you so much. Now I would hand over to next speaker, that is Dr. Pratima. She is also assistant professor in glaucoma department. She'll be talking about the management of angle closure disease in brief. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suparna.
So good morning, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about the management of primary angle closure glaucoma. So all the previous speakers have highlighted the importance of gonioscopy and other techniques where we diagnose primary angle closure glaucoma. And coming to the introduction of management of angle closure glaucoma. So management, basically we divide into management of an acute attack of angle closure and management of chronic angle closure glaucoma. So because The acute attack of angle closure is managed slightly differently from chronic angle closure glaucoma, because chronic is based on gonioscopy and we diagnose it in quiet eyes. So the classification has already been put forward, that is PACS, PSC and PACG. So coming to the management of acute angle closure crisis, as we call it, or acute angle closure glaucoma, we give IV mannitol to reduce the pressure when it is more than 40 millimeters mercury. So once the pressure is reduced with IV mannitol, we can give other topical anti-glaucoma medications to lower the IOP further, which will act after giving IV mannitol. And also pilocarpine will not act on the ischemic sphincter once the IOP is high. So once the IOP falls below 40, pilocarpine will act on the sphincter and will constrict the pupil to break the attack. So other drugs which are used are prednisolone acetate, which is given to reduce the inflammation. So once the inflammation is reduced and cornea is cleared by giving the anti-glaucoma medications, LPI has to be done. And treatment of the fellow eye is also very important, because the other eye will have a PACS or a PAC or a PACG. We have to treat the fellow eye with an LPI also. So, but if the medical management and LPI are not enough, what is the next step? Suppose the pressure is uncontrolled and there's a clear lens, we go for a trabeculectomy. If there is a significant cataract without very high IOPs below 30, we can do cataract surgery alone, a phaco or an SICS. Suppose there's a visually significant cataract and IOP is very high, we can do both, like a combined surgery, that is cataract as well as trab. So coming to the management of primary angle closure and primary angle closure glaucoma. Here also, the main management differs based on the pathophysiological mechanism which is responsible. If the major mechanism, as told by Divya, is a relative pupillary block in majority of cases, we manage the IOP with medical treatment. We first reduce the IOP and then do a laser peripheral iridotomy, which is the mainstay of treatment to correct the relative pupillary block. If pressures are still uncontrolled and there's a visually significant cataract also, we can consider either lens extraction or a filtration surgery or a combination, as I have described for acute angle closure. So once the patient comes back after the LPI for a follow-up, and next visit we do a gonioscopy and find a double hump sign or a sine wave sign, and also after the dilatation the pressure rises, we consider the diagnosis of plateau iris syndrome, and then we consider doing an iridoplasty. If we don't have an iridoplasty, like in our setup, we use the drug, that is pilocarpine. So same thing for plateau iris syndrome also. If pressures are uncontrolled, we take it further and do a cataract or a filtration surgery or a combined. If the lens-induced mechanism is predominant, then we consider a lens extraction. Like in our setup, we see a lot of phacomorphic glaucoma cases where the intumescent cataract is responsible for the lens-induced mechanism of angle closure, and we remove the cataract to treat the glaucoma. So coming to laser peripheral iridotomy, these are two pictures showing a laser peripheral iridotomy, one at 1 o'clock and the other at 9 o'clock in 2 eyes, done at our center. So briefly, I will tell you what is a laser peripheral iridotomy. We use topical pilocarpine to myose the pupil and stretch the iris, thin iris in the periphery. We use an Abraham iridotomy lens with a coupling fluid to magnify and also to use as stabilizing agent. We choose an iris crypt or an area of thin iris, and we aim at the peripheral iris between 10 and 2 o'clock underneath the upper eyelid. The energy used is 2 to 5 millijoules, 1 to 3 pulses per burst, and the endpoint is an iris pigment plume, and the lens is visible through the iridotomy. And the peripheral iridotomy size, ideal size, is about 150 to 200 microns. So here you can see in this picture the number of patients coming to our center because of the pandemic, presenting with a phacomorphic glaucoma, presenting very late because they have not been able to access medical care during the pandemic. So all of them presenting with a phacomorphic glaucoma have been operated, lens extraction was done, and if the pressure was very high, cases showing a phacomorphic glaucoma, and one is a post-op picture showing a cataract, post-op picture of a patient showing pseudophakic eye. And we also do trabeculectomy with mitomycin C in some cases where the pressures are uncontrolled. So coming to primary angle closure suspect. So what is this? So in primary angle closure suspect, as already described, we have only iridotrabecular contact of more than 180 degrees without high IOP or peripheral antisynechiae or disc or field changes. So in such cases, we don't do a peripheral iridotomy in all the cases because number of cases changing from PACS to PAC and PACG will be very, very less. So we do peripheral iridotomy in cases of PSCS only in certain conditions. So what are those? A presence of PAC, primary angle closure, or primary angle closure glaucoma in the fellow eye, or patient having a family history of angle closure glaucoma. And if patient needs repeated dilated examinations, suppose patient is a diabetic or hypertensive and needs to come back for repeated dilated examinations to rule out diabetic retinopathy every 6 months or a year, then for such patients, you will have to do a peripheral iridotomy. If the patient has poor access to regular ophthalmic care, that patient is living far away in a remote village who cannot come for regular follow-ups, such patients, you will have to do a peripheral iridotomy. You cannot leave them alone, because once they develop an attack, they cannot access care immediately. Or a one-eyed patient, due to some any cause, they have lost one eye due to trauma or due to angle closure or any other reason, they have lost one eye, and the other eye is showing an occludable angle, you will definitely have to do an LPI. Certain other indications where I put a star here because these are less common indications where in cases of PSCS, we do an LPI. That is presence of patchy pigmentation of the posterior trabecular meshwork, which is suggestive of prolonged iridotrabecular contact, and also patients having symptoms suggestive of intermittent closure of the angle, right? They have complaint of headache, intermittent headaches, and then a little bit of colored halos in between, and then they are again fine. So such patients also you can take up for an LPI. And certain other less common indications are if patient is on systemic medications which can cause a pupillary dilatation and they can develop an attack, like antidepressant drugs, like tricyclic antidepressants, systemic serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or any other drugs for asthma. If they are on prolonged medications, they can also develop an attack. So such cases also we might have to do an LPI. So my take-home message is the mainstay of management of angle closure glaucoma is for high IOP. First, we will reduce the IOP with medical management with various drugs depending on the level of IOP, like mannitol, acetazolamide. Then you have topical medications like brimonidine, prostaglandin, which are avoided in acute angle closure, but chronic angle closures, you can always give these drugs. You can use dorzolamide, timolol, all the various drugs have been used. And the reserve drug is pilocarpine, which can be used in plateau iris syndrome specifically. And in other cases where the IOP remains uncontrolled with all the 4 drugs, you can add it as a 5th drug, additional drug. And also laser peripheral iridotomy is the main mechanism, is the main methodology to treat relative pupillary block, which is the major mechanism of angle closure. And long-term follow-up is required for these patients. You do an LPI and you cannot just leave the patient alone. We have to follow them up regularly, depending on the stage of the disease and depending on the treatment given. As many patients, in spite of your treatment, they will continue to progress. And depending on the IOP, if it's uncontrolled, I told you already, if there's a visually significant cataract, uncontrolled IOP, which is low, less than 30, we do a cataract alone. If they are very high, we can do a trap with a clear lens. If there's a cataract as well as high uncontrolled pressures, we can do a combined surgery. And this is very, very, very important. Red eyes, like in a phacomorphic glaucoma, you should not operate them till they become quiet. So before you take the phacomorphic glaucoma cases up for surgery, you have to control the inflammation, reduce the IOP, make the patient pain-free, make them comfortable, and then only quiet eyes you will take up for surgery. So thank you, TOS, for giving us this opportunity to have the instruction course, to participate in the instruction course. And I thank my guide, Dr. Venkatratham sir and Suparna madam, for always encouraging me and guiding me to do my best. And thank you all for this opportunity. These are my references.
Good, Pratima. You did a good job. But in peripheral iridotomies, you increased the indications, saying that the headache and pigmentation on the Shalby's line, those are all secondary to your gonioscope. Unless you complete your gonioscope, just because patient is telling headache, nowadays we are seeing in the Apex hospitals, people who unwarrantedly undergone peripheral iridotomies with a vested interest. So that need to be curtailed. So that's why the only way to decide whether which patient requires a peripheral iridotomy is only gonioscope, that you need to do an indentation properly in ambient conditions, then decide. Don't take symptoms as a criteria to decide whom needs the peripheral iridotomy. Okay?
Yes, sir.
think
I
I'm very
totally
clear.
agree with you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hello?
Doctor, you're audible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah.
So this is the sum up of our presentation. Basically, what we want to tell the audience and everyone through this presentation as a small sum up is that please don't think that angle closure presents like a typical acute presentation as is described in books. You can have angle closure patients very quiet, asymptomatic, coming only with the complaints of diminished vision. And as our chief instructor, Dr. Venkatatnam sir, clearly told, that patients, when usually we are seeing in OPD, we are doing a study also on that they're usually presenting with one eye blind. The other eye is having already 40 to 50% vision only, and one eye is already blind. At that time, they are presenting to us because it's an asymptomatic disease, not being diagnosed. Patient is sitting comfortably. They come very late when they're having problem in their daily activities. So that is a message we want to tell everyone, that angle closure is an asymptomatic disease. Please take care and see for the subtle signs. And after 40, a glaucoma screening for a patient is a must. Even in a common ophthalmic setup or a general ophthalmic setup, glaucoma screening is a must for every patient who is above 40 years of age. That is compulsory, or it's a protocol, or it's mandatory, I would say. And another thing is importance of gonioscopy. Until and unless we master that art of doing a gonioscopy, we cannot find out this angle closure glaucoma burden from the community because it's an asymptomatic disease. How can we diagnose? By seeing the subtle signs and by doing the gonioscopy, which will give us 100% correlation or a confirmation. And we can go ahead with, as Dr. Pratima discussed, about the management, maybe in form of a laser peripheral iridotomy, maybe treating the patient medically before. And another important thing to remember here is laser peripheral iridotomy is not the end point of angle closure treatment. It is the gateway, or it's the beginning of angle closure disease treatment. Once you have done a laser peripheral iridotomy, now that patient should come for follow-up to you throughout life. And many times the management of angle closure disease may not be completed by doing a laser peripheral iridotomy. It is the starting point. Then you have to further treat the patient, follow up the patient throughout life. So don't have the concept that once I have done laser peripheral iridotomy, I'll sit back happily. No, that is the wrong conception. So patient is your patient throughout life, and it's your duty to follow up that patient throughout life in angle closure disease. So these are the two important messages. Angle closure as an asymptomatic disease, importance of gonioscopy, everyone should learn. After 40, glaucoma examination, a complete protocol of glaucoma examination is a must for every person in the community. Because as Dr. Divya and Dr. Venkatatnam also pointed out, that 90% of the disease is still undiagnosed in developing countries. So in our country also 90% is hidden. What we are seeing is only tip of the iceberg. So we have to come out of that. Coming out is training more people in doing gonioscopy, making more glaucoma specialists, training general ophthalmologists in gonioscopy. So sir, any concluding points from you?
Suparna, and why the Suparna is making such a hue and cry about the gonioscopy is the ability of this disease to create a blind person community so early in their, and it's an economical burden. One thing we need to understand, though the primary open angle glaucoma throughout the world is more compared to with the angle closure glaucoma, but the potential blinding disease is angle closure, because 50% of the blindness related to glaucoma is contributed by the angle closure throughout the world. So the capacity of aggressive of this glaucoma, once you miss the diagnosis, you will miss the time. So that is the reason we are emphasizing on angle closures, because we are experiencing what we are in our OPDs day to day, and the misdiagnosis, and 50% of the people, they don't understand and they don't use medicines, and complaints is a big issue. And whatever you say, the patients don't use the medications as per your, as per your protocol or as per your advice. This is complaints. Because of that, we are doing that by our optometrists and postgraduates They are sitting together with the patients and explaining how to use the medications, how long they need to close the eye, how long they need to continue it, when they need to come back, and what in between we need, like visual fields, we need to get it done at the right time. And this is how we need to, as Suparna said, that a lifetime we need to follow all those angle courses, but we can
Yes.
double any time. So
Yes.
with this, I thank profusely the Telangana Ophthalmic Association and organizing committee chairman and organizing committee secretary for giving us this beautiful opportunity to share what are all the thoughts and what are all we are experiencing in Sarojini Devi Eye Hospital today. Thank you very much, and I profusely thank all my team members, Suparna, Divya, and Pratima, doing an excellent job in creating the awareness of this disease in this instruction course. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.